I came across this story and I'm very thankful for whomever sent it. They utilized my email. I'm definitely grateful. And this story really broke my heart for a lot of different reasons. I'm probably going to have some opinions that are not going to sit well with your sensibilities. I'm going to get on to some people, including the biological mother. But I think that once you hear a little bit of the background, you'll truly understand and you won't get mad about my opinion. But if this is your first time here, I have to give you a disclaimer. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. I want you guys to take a look at this angel that is on my screen, and the life that she lived is a life that she did not deserve. This baby deserved the world and could have grown up to become anything. And I was highly, highly upset to the point that I was very emotional when I read this story. It make you want to cry. It make you angry. It make you want to hurt something, break something. But the story I got from people.com, the website. So thank you very much for this article. So let me back this picture up before I talk about that evil person that you guys see there. This angel that you guys see on my screen, I want to have a solo shot of her here. Her name is Zoe Felix, Zoey Felix, Felix. She was 5 years old, and her death has many outraged and wondering why more wasn't done to protect the Kansas child after multiple concerns were raised regarding her living conditions, which y'all are not. If y'all didn't look this story up, you are not going to believe this. ABC News, the Associated Press, which is the AP, and KCTV5 report that welfare officials with the Kansas Department of Children and Families investigated Zoe and her family multiple times within the 13 months leading up to her rape and death. I'm not going to say that word very often, but it is in the context of this story. But gruesome detail, citing a report from the Kansas Department of Children and Families. Her family declined help from the agency on several occasions. Let me say that again. The family declined help. They needed help. People reached out. Somebody saw something, said something, and they said, no, we're good. We don't want your help. So I want y'all to keep that in mind. According to KCTV, the agency received 9 reports involving Zoe, with 6 of those assigned for further investigation. The documents date back to September 2022, which shows you guys there was a lot of time that they had to save this baby. For September 2022 for reports of offenses such as poor conditions in the home and possible drug use in the presence of a child. In other instances, the agency was called to investigate claims of lack of supervision, and Zoe's mother was arrested for driving under the influence while Zoe was in the front seat of the car. Keep in mind, she's about 4 to 5 years old. According to the outlet, her mother pleaded guilty to felony aggravated battery and driving under the influence. Following the alleged drunk driving incident, Zoe was placed in police protective custody, but reunited with her father that same evening. So she has a father. That's why even more of this is going to get, it's not going to make any sense at all. On October the 2nd, Zoe was killed. An individual that is less than a human being. This MFer right here, by the name of Michael, Michael, middle name W, last name Cherry, 25 years old, an unhoused resident of Topeka, so he's homeless, was booked into the Shawnee County Jail in connection with her death in less than 24 hours. At the time, the Topeka Police Department said Cherry was known to the victim. KWCH-12 reported that he lived in the same homeless camp as her family. So he was familiar with her. Cherry has since been charged with first-degree murder, rape, and capital murder. Our office has been appointed to represent Mr. Cherry in his capital murder case. A team of attorneys have been assigned to handle the criminal matter. Mark Manna of the Kansas Death Penalty Defense Unit told People in a statement, but declined to comment further on the case. Zoe's exact cause of death has not been yet revealed. Our society's collective failure to support and protect Zoe is heartbreaking and unconscionable. A person by the name of Shakti Belway, executive director at the National Center for Youth Law, said in a statement obtained by the AP. How was that child not removed? It doesn't make any sense. In a statement shared by Kansas DCF Secretary Laura Howard, she claimed her agency was fully committed to conducting a thorough review of Zoe's case. And I'm going to tell you guys how it got to this point is not going to make any sense if DCF was actually doing their job. This should have never have come to this. We're also going to talk about that GoFundMe, and I don't want to forget about that. And I think I have another screenshot here that I want to talk about also. Saved in my pictures, but we'll get back to it here in just a second. Let me make sure. Yep. Let me see. Oh yeah, we'll get back to that here in a moment. I think we can skip some of this. They're talking about the law. Okay, so let's go ahead, and as you guys can see, that's the criminal complaint. But let me show you guys this, because I've talked about this before. As you guys can see from this picture on my screen, this is a screenshot from a website that was featuring a GoFundMe account. I've been telling you guys when there is a death of a child involved, we need to be very, very careful before we start just throwing money into a GoFundMe account, because we've not done any research. There might be criminal prosecution, or there might be somebody trying to collect money off of a child that don't deserve it, which is we call #babies for benefits. There was a GoFundMe that was put up, and that GoFundMe was taken down because the funeral home covered the cost of Zoe's burial. So the people were refunded, which is great. That's a great thing. I don't know exactly the amount that was the original GoFundMe was put up, but here is a screenshot as well. So this GoFundMe was put up by an individual by the name of Justin Ludy. And I'm assuming, I think this said that this was the biological father. But there was a GoFundMe that was put up, and they had to disable it, and everybody got their money back. But you can see there was an actual GoFundMe that was put up sometime around a month ago. Okay? Now, here's something that news report didn't talk about. What I thought was weird was that the mother apparently had a place, some type of roof over her head, some type of place where she could sleep at night. I don't know if it was a house. I don't really know. But the mother kicked her daughter out. The mother kicked her daughter out. So some type of way, this little girl was kicked out of the place that she was living, which is really weird. That, yes, her mom threw her out. Now I want y'all to remember that this is a 5-year-old baby. This is a 5-year-old baby, which is really, really weird. And on top of that, there's been many times, and the reason why CPS was called so many times was because they found this little girl out playing by herself. She was not monitored. She was not being watched. She was always dirty, and she was always hungry. So what it was that whenever she'd be around other people, she would go ask them for food, and then they would help clean her up. They would feed her, and then they would just, I guess, let her go about her own way, which is just really, really weird. But let me give you guys the fair usage, and let's try to keep this thing going. So here we go. federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. And if you guys would do me a favor and please click that thumbs up, it'll share this video and let more people know where to find it. So let's go ahead and talk about this story. Here we go.
Serious questions are being raised tonight in the rape and murder of a 5-year-old Kansas girl. This is Zoe Felix.
Yeah, neighbors say they had reported concerns about Zoe's situation for years to police and Child Protective Services, but nothing was ever done. Tonight, investigative reporter Angie Riccono reports from Topeka.
There is sadness and anger in Topeka. People have been dropping off flowers and stuffed animals at this makeshift memorial. It's near the field where little Zoe was found, and just steps away appears to be her last known location where she lived, a tent in the woods.
I'm trying not to cry, you guys. But it just, you know.
What do you say when a child is raped and murdered?
I've honestly just been sick. It's disgusting.
Little Zoe Felix lived right next door, and neighbors say she struggled.
Like, hey, there's no water at my house.
Shaniqua Bradley and other neighbors say they tried to help. They made Zoe food, and she would get water from their house. They were baffled that Zoe didn't go to school.
Zoe has been on her own this entire time.
Most importantly, they say they reported it.
I reported it, Ms. Jan reported it, Ms. Desiree reported it. I'm sure we all have reported several times, but nothing was ever done that I'm aware of.
The most recent police welfare check was in early September. There was no power at the house. From Topeka Police, officers then met with the child, who was in good spirits and apparent health, and the child was left in the care of their parent per the custodial agreement. Officers then left the scene. Neighbors describe more volatility. Then Zoe disappears. Only her mother remains in the home.
Everybody was asking, where's Zoe?
Hello?
Zoe appears to have recently lived in this tent where we found a stuffed animal, backpack, and a pink hairbrush. It's steps from where her body was found. Zoe was rushed to a nearby gas station for help. She was later pronounced dead. Suspect Michael Cherry is now in jail, booked for murder in the first degree and rape. He lists his address as homeless. Neighbors say he used to live in the same house as Zoe before they all disappeared.
Oh my God, like we just seen them up here the other day.
A family who dropped off flowers says they recognized Cherry. He appeared to be Zoe's babysitter as she played in a parking lot barefoot, wearing an oversized shirt.
It was real long all the way down.
Zoe's dad wanted to make a trade for food. They are crushed to hear she was living in a tent and was murdered.
This could have been prevented, honestly, I think.
The same concern has been raised in other cases. Adrian Jones was 7 years old when he was tortured, starved, and killed, later fed to pigs. His DCF file was 2,000 pages. And 3-year-old Olivia Jansen, she died from a brain bleed. Her body was covered in bruises. A family member reported concerns 18 days before her death. And now 5-year-old Zoe Felix, apparently not going to school and living in a tent, raped and murdered.
KCTV5 is pushing for DCF records for Zoe Felix. The state agency has 7 days to reveal what was reported to them before she died, and that's because of a new state law created after the death of Adrian Jones. Reporting in Topeka.
Thanks, Jeremy. One man is in custody tonight as law enforcement investigates the death of a child. 25-year-old Michael Cherry is in the Shawnee County Jail being held for rape and first-degree murder in the death of 5-year-old Zoe Felix. Cherry's bond is $2 million. Topeka police were called to a disturbance around 6 last night at a gas station at Southeast 29th in California. First responders found Zoe and began life-saving measures, but she was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Authorities had this large crime scene taped off in a grassy field just north of the Dillon store there throughout the day. Cherry was booked just after 4 this morning. Jail officials list his address as homeless. TPD, though, said he and the child knew each other. Zoe's neighbors are heartbroken to learn what happened to her. 13's Callie Holthouse is live in Southeast Topeka for us tonight. Callie?
Yeah, I'm here. Just behind me you can see one of the crime scenes where this occurred and a small memorial that's been put together in honor of Zoe Felix. Earlier today I spoke to the neighbors who lived just across the street from the house Zoe stayed at with her mother. They're devastated to learn that despite their repeated pleas for help, Zoe still suffered this tragic fate.
Neighbors of Zoe Felix say they loved the 5-year-old like she was one of their own.
Loving girl, questions, loved the children. All the kids played with her. They all looked out for her. Everybody looked out for Zoe. She was a curious George with nowhere to go. Nowhere to go.
But despite their efforts, they say she lived a life of instability. The house she stayed in lacked utilities, and she was sometimes left home alone.
No lights, no water. By herself sometimes.
Neighbors say they did what they could for Zoe, helping keep her bathed, clothed, and fed, even going so far as to report Felix's living conditions to local authorities. Police Chief Brian Wheelis would not confirm whether authorities had any prior contact with the family. He also...
So let me comment about this part, because y'all are thinking kind of the same thing that I'm thinking, but there's a big problem with that, because y'all are saying like other people could have just taken her in. It's like yes and no. Like you don't want just random people taking a child in, and I love the fact that the community mindset is to, hey, we can all help. We can all try to do something, and that part is great. The bad part is that's you can't just put a baby just anywhere and everywhere. That baby needs to be in a known place, in a protected place, right? And the fact that this was known, this was beknownst to people. I'm going to use a big word today. Beknownst to people that everybody knew where she lived. Everybody knew that this house didn't have utilities. The utilities were off. This little girl was literally going out and trying to find food, and people were providing it. To me, first of all, there's always a failure on the biological mother and biological father first. That's where the failure starts. But as a backup, the system failed again, and this was an easy detection. Don't y'all think? This wasn't even hard to figure out, yo, this baby can't live here. This baby needs to be in the care of the state or something. That would have been better than absolutely nothing.
Also would not comment on their relationship with the suspect.
The information and all the investigative evidence will be compiled and sent to the district attorney's office.
Neighbors say they are left devastated.
It hurts. It's a tragedy. You have a death and then you have a tragedy. Hers is a tragedy. And I just experienced a tragedy. That's a tragedy. It's more than just a death. It's a tragedy.
13 News did submit a Kansas Open Records Act request to the Department of Children and Families to see what, if any, investigations took place regarding Zoe Felix.
Since this tragic death, lawmakers at the State House are pressing leaders at the Child Welfare Department for answers. Fox 43 News Capitol Bureau.
Now tonight, the community and city leaders are talking about the tragedy and the little girl, Zoe, whose life was cut short. 27 News reporter Jacob Kaufman joins us.
Whenever she needed a place to go, to eat, basically anything, her neighbors stepped up.
Sweetest little girl ever, just looking for love. She needed love, and so we gave it to her. Everybody out here cared for her, so we call her our neighborhood daughter. And this is my granddaughter, her best friend. She just moved over here with me, so her and Zoe play together every day, so this is taking effect on her as well.
More people are being affected by Zoe's passing than just her neighbors. It's leaving an empty feeling inside for a number of people, including city leaders.
What happened to Zoe was tragic. I can't give enough praise to our police department. They quickly apprehended the person who did this, the monster, if it was the person who did this. Right now, frankly, I don't care about statistics. What I care about is what happened to this little girl.
The pain runs deeper.
And I just can't imagine the pain that the family's going through and that our community is going through. This is such a shock whenever you have an innocent child like this brutalized and murdered. It's just the worst thing in the world.
Zoe's passing marks the 26th homicide of the year in the capital city. Mayor Michael Padilla says when it comes to crime in the city, we all can do more.
I think it all boils down to how we treat each other. And that's how I see the rise, is that if there are people in this community who resort to violence rather than conversation and discussion.
This is KSN News 3 at...
And people have more questions after the death of a 5-year-old Topeka girl. How the child removal process works in Kansas is where we start tonight. Good evening and thanks for joining us for 27 News at 6. I'm Mackenzie Davis.
And I'm David George. It's been a week since the tragic death of...
Right now.
Well, David McKenzie, there are many questions regarding this case. One of those is, why wasn't Zoe Felix removed from her parents' custody? I reached out to DCF to get answers on how that process works. The tragic death of 5-year-old Zoe Felix is raising questions about who is to blame.
I don't understand. It's just like she was failed. Zoe was failed by the system.
The 5-year-old girl was raped and murdered last week, not far from a homeless campsite where she was living, after neighbors say she was kicked out of her house, along with her father and sister. A spokesman for the Kansas Department of Children and Families says if a child is determined to be unsafe at home, then DCF can ask the local county or district attorney to petition the court to remove the child from the home. Shawnee County's prosecutor says that never happened in the case of Zoe. Neighbors say despite countless calls to the agency, she wasn't removed.
I don't feel like the state did what they were supposed to do. I don't feel like the police department did what they were supposed to do. And I don't feel like her parents did what they should have did either.
Some are pointing fingers at DCF. There's been horrific stories of children slipping through the cracks, like 7-year-old Adrian Jones from Kansas City, whose body was fed to pigs in the livestock pen in 2015. Then in 2018, a 3-year-old boy's body was found encased in concrete in a Wichita home. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly promised an overhaul of the system when she took office, but Zoe's death is once again prompting concerns. Now, it's unclear whether abuse or neglect has been determined as a cause for Zoe's death. We did put in an open records request last Tuesday, and if this case is found to involve abuse or neglect, the agency has to turn over information within 7 days of that being determined, according to state law. For now, reporting live at the Capitol.
And this is where I'm going to close this out with this story, and I'm going to just say this. They knew that this was going on since last year at least. This baby has been failed since day one. I don't understand what kind of an alleged human, and let me get the mama's face back up on the screen. That's a beautiful little angel, man. Hell, I would have raised her myself. Like, I've got kids I'm trying to raise, and I just can't stand situations like this. If I were a neighbor, best believe she would have been calling me dad. She would have been calling me dad because I would have been raising her. That would have been me. I would have been one of those ones. Because most of you guys who have been watching me, whether you've been watching me for months or whether you've been watching me for a few years that I've been on YouTube, what is the number one thing that bothers me more than anything? And especially we're coming across Thanksgiving. We're coming across Christmas. If y'all don't know me, y'all know the number one thing that bothers me is when a person can't eat. Because it's the pure, most basic thing that all of us need to be able to do. Food and water, sustenance. It's the number one thing that bothers me when people can't eat and can't drink. It's more egregious when it's a baby that's in this position, right? It's more egregious when it's a baby in this position because they depend on us as the adults and as the parents for everything that they get. And the fact that you have this mother who'd rather be high and drunk and put her child in a position like this. I don't want to hear about mental illness, because the thing is, I continue to keep reminding people that mental illness cannot be an excuse to hurt, harm, murder, or do anything negative to your children. Matter of fact, if you're homeless and you can't take care of yourself, if you can't keep a roof over your head, you should not be a parent. Why is that not a basic thing? Am I saying something that's hurting people's feelings? I don't really effing know. I really don't. I'll be trying my best not to curse on here. I'll really be trying. But I don't understand how I can get people in my comment section, not even in the live chat. The people in the live chat are great. AFC is great. The problem I have is I'll get these random people in my comment section. They'll say, well, you don't know what the mother was going through. She might be suffering from mental illness. Well, I'm sorry. She looks like Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil. She's an evil person. She ain't nothing. God, I want to cuss so bad. I'm going to try my best not to. I'm going to try my best not to use any swear words. I'm going to try my best. But the mother is not a mother. She's not human. She didn't care about this child. This has been going on, for what we know, more than 12 months. March of 2022. That was more than enough time that this child survived. That police should have got off their butts and did something. DCF, you had time to get off your butt and do something before this nasty rapist fool was able to get his hands on this baby. Plenty of time. Whether it were hours, whether it were minutes, whether it were days or weeks, they had time to prevent this. To me, that signifies that nobody cared. Nobody cared enough to step in and fix this. That sucks. And I'm going to tell y'all, to be real, when I read this story, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to talk about this. I don't know how I could do this. Because to me, as a father, as a man, any of you guys out there, if y'all are parents, y'all can understand where I'm coming from. And by the way, that's my favorite picture of her right there. That's my favorite picture of her right there, because look at how bright she is. Look at how beautiful she is. This baby could have grown up to become anything, and I'm sure she was very, very bright. If she just had an opportunity to have food, have drink, have shelter, clean clothes, and just be able to just do her day-to-day business, this baby was going to become something great. And yet we had a nasty pedophile rapist fool who came and stole that. And I hope that if they have the ultimate penalty under law for him, if found that he's guilty of that, by all means, he's a piece of trash in our society that should just be discarded, flat out. Zoe, sweetheart, and I'm going to tell you like this, and I'm going to speak to your spirit. I'm sorry I wasn't your neighbor. I'm sorry I wasn't your father, your friend, somebody nearby, somebody close enough that I could have helped, possibly saved you from this situation. And for that, dear princess, I apologize, as well as a lot of us do, because this baby should not have had to endure this at all. This baby cannot speak for herself, nor could she defend herself against the tyranny of her mother, her father, and the person who ultimately ended up costing her her life. Zoe, may you rest in peace, sweetheart. And I want to get her favorite picture back up here. My favorite picture of her back up here. And why is the mother not arrested? Like, why didn't the mother go into jail? Shouldn't the mom do jail time too? I think so. I think so. Right? Cruella. I think she should do prison time too. I'd say, I don't know. I don't really know what sentence will be appropriate. But young princess, R.I.P. Thank y'all for listening to this story. And please, again, and I use these stories as cautionary tales. As an example, if you see something, say something. If we can step in and save a child's life, I would love to see y'all share those stories. Share them in the comment section. If you've done your due diligence in society, speak on it. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. Let me know. I love to hear those stories. But this should have never have happened. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section, okay? Thank you.